Hey guys, welcome back to Spy Plays. Today we're going to be going over some awesome blue cards we think are heavily underrated right now in the CDH meta. These cards are great includes and most are fairly budget, so next time you're building a deck, you might want to consider these in the 99. Also, a huge thanks for all the support we've been getting. You guys are awesome and we couldn't do it without you. If you enjoy the content and want to see more uploads in the future, please share, like, and subscribe. It really helps grow the channel. Alright, now let's get into the video. Hey guys, it's Jesse.
Hey, this is John.
Alex, we're back again.
Today we're going to be doing the underrated blue cards, specifically for CDH. And the first one we have today is going to be Dress Down. This is honestly one of our favorite cards.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Especially
it seems to be a controversial pick.
Yeah, especially to break stack spaces. But
It really shouldn't be, but
what do you have to say about this, John?
so Dress Down, let's read Dress Down out. So what Dress Down says is what Dress Down should say is, my thing went weird for a second.
When Dress Down enters the battlefield, draw a card, creatures lose all
Very
abilities. At the
Yeah.
beginning of the end step, sacrifice Dress Down, has
And-
flash, it's 1 in a blue for an enchantment.
Yep. That winds up being really cool for a lot of different reasons. So the first thing we see on there is it has flash, right? Having this at flash allows you to do a bunch of really cool stuff with this. But obviously it draws a card, which is like cool, but the main like awesome part about this obviously is it just says creatures lose all abilities.
Let's
So
think
the
about
last
this for a second, right? Like, humility is this effect. People, for as long as CEDH has existed, have tried to break humility and have failed. Humility has broken them because you can never break parity on humility. This is different because it goes away.
Mhm.
100%.
This card, not only does it go away, but you get to cast this card for 2 mana, and this allows you to do so many things with it. The most relevant thing that you can do with this in the current CDH meta is the fact that you can flash this in on the last person's end step and untap if you're playing an Underworld Breach Brain Freeze combo deck, and be able to have a win con that can just win through all the creature stacks that there might be on the board is extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. This card allows you to get out of games that you have no right winning. The fact that it's only 2 mana to effectively clear a board for a turn and allow you to do your thing can really put the screws on. It is shockingly powerful.
Let's go on to Alex. What do you have to say on this card? How has it helped you
Yeah.
in your games?
So, I'm just gonna look at some of the things I've written down here in preparation. So, one of the nice things is that this is blanking multiple creatures at once in a similar way that you might have with Toxic Deluge or something like that. The instant speed is really helpful though. So if you were to be in a situation where you have a whole board loaded with stacks creatures, you would be able to play Toxic Deluge maybe, but you might also have to pass a turn if there's like a Rule of Law or something like that in play that you can't really get around. But with Dress Down, you're able to flash that in at somebody else's end step before you start your turn. So you're able to have all those creatures blanked at once when you start your turn, and you can pair that with pretty much any of the other reliable bounce spells or removal pieces that we have, like Abrupt Decay or Winds of Rebuke, things like that. And just the combination of those two, it gets you out of almost any situation. It's really powerful.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. I'll say from my perspective, I play a lot of stacks. I absolutely hate this card. This card just, when it was printed and I saw it, I was like, no, this can't be. Why is it blue? I hate blue gets everything. It literally got humility on a stick that benefits Nas players because this is going to allow them to clear all those stupid hate bears that are stopping them on 1 turn, but they don't have to get rid of them. They only need 1 turn, but that's all a Nas player needs. That's all most of these decks, they just need 1 turn. And then on top of that, it draws a card. Why does it draw a card? Like, who thought 2 mana draw a card and blank everything was a good idea? And people are even using this in Modern to just like drop Croxus.
And Legacy.
Yeah, and Legacy too. And a big thing that honestly this card, it just has so many uses. That's the thing. It's so versatile.
Yeah.
You can stop people from winning. It isn't just like blank stacks. It's not just Toxic Deluge where it'll just clear the board, you know? Which Toxic Deluge is a good card, but
yeah,
this does that and more. Like, someone's gonna win with Oracle. Psych. You're not winning with Oracle anymore. Someone's gonna win. You want to win with like your cool fair deck with Ballista, with Heliod, Ballista combo. Nope,
No,
just put that
kills
in.
the Ballista,
Yeah,
actually.
if you put it in response to them casting Ballista, Ballista just dies as a state based action, and then Godo, it just turns that off. These are just in our
No
pods,
Nagila for that turn.
No
You can
Nagila.
still get it the next turn, but
Yeah.
you wind up shutting off. You can basically play this as a piece of interaction for almost every pretty much every commander centric combo that there is.
Yeah.
You can at least turn off for a turn, and a lot of the times you can just totally hose it. On top of being an interaction piece, it can also just like open you up for a turn.
That's
One thing that I like about this is the mana cost, right? Compared to something like Cyclonic Rift, you know, a lot of these wide-reaching effects tend to have a higher mana cost stapled to it, right? Like, sure, Cyclonic Rift is kind of modal in the sense that you can pay it for 2 mana or 7 mana, but with Dress Down, you kind of get this like sort of 7 mana effect almost for 2 mana regardless.
Yeah.
So that's pretty helpful.
That is true.
And because a lot of times when those boards are super stacked out, one of the main stacks pieces that people are playing are Collector Oof effects or Null Rod effects. Collector Oof is the main one that's found first because it's it's a creature, and there's a lot of way to find creatures, but being able to stop that or being able to cast it for just 2 mana is so important. Cyclonic Rift for a long time has been looked at as the holy grail of being able to stop the stack because you throw everything up in the air. But when they pair that with all the mana denial effects, it gets really hard to even possibly cast that.
It's quite difficult to get to 7 lands, right? Like, having 7 lands in play really does become a tall order in some of these games.
Oh, for sure.
And also being able to hold open a Cyclonic Rift and protect it. That being said, usually when you are trying to do that, there might be like a rule of law, so you can protect it even if you wanted to. But getting to 2 is so much easier.
Yeah, and I think the weird key thing that makes this even better than it should be is it's at the beginning of the end step, so you cast it at the end of their end step. So not at the beginning.
Tap with all your mana.
So yeah, you have 2 mana, then you cast that, then you untap, and then you have it still there doing what you want it to do. And on top of that, you drew a card, so now you're drawing an extra card. So it's just like it does so much.
Yeah.
This is definitely one card that I think is going to be added heavily to a lot of decks in the future, and it's already seen a lot of promise in multiple formats, and one of those being CDH for sure. So I think we're going to get on to the next one, which is Rushing River. This is an interesting tech that I know you and Alex bring in a lot against stacks. A lot of these cards are, well, not a lot of these cards, but these first 2 are definitely to get your engine going if there's like something stopping you, and this is one that's very, very good. What do you have to say on this one, John?
Yeah, so Rushing River is like Dress Down's brother, right?
Basically.
In how, not brother as in like they are not its brother as in like they're like really similarly related to each other, but how they kind of like they kind of help each other out, right? Rushing River was also just really good by itself, but God, no, that's
What?
I'm like, I realize I'm starting to talk about Dress Down again.
Oh yeah.
Before even talking about just Rushing River as the card.
No, I think Rushing River as a card, it's 3 mana, and it just bounces. Like, why don't you just play like Winds of Rebuke? And it's like, This a lot of times will get you around Chalice on 2 as well, that people don't realize. Most people put Chalice on. I put Chalice on 2. If you're playing a stack deck that plays Chalice, you're gonna put it on 2 most of the time, or 1.
Same with
But I would say
what's
2 is the
the
best.
3-mana creature? Sanctum
Oh,
Relay,
Sanctum Prelate.
Sanctum Prelate. Yeah, which
always in these decks.
Yeah, exactly. So those things are almost always going to be on 2 because you're stopping Oracle. You're actually stopping Cyclonic Rift even on 2, even if you overload it, right? The CMC is the same. Yeah.
It counters it still.
It gets rid of the things that bounce it, and it gets rid of the win cons if you have it on 2. So that's why most people put it on 2 if they can, like get it out. I mean, the mana in this format, you can get it out pretty fast. I've gone like sometimes turn 1 Chalice on 2, which is it's possible, but usually it's like turn 2. But either way, this is just a good way to open up the floodgates. Literally, like it's in the card. It's a rushing river.
Yeah.
Like you're
Again, comparing this now to Cyclonic Rift, which has been looked at once again. It's been looked at as like the holy grail of
for sure.
Defeating your stacks decks.
Right.
This card allows you to have a similar effect in like the kind of mid game except you do not need 7 mana for it. Being able to bounce 2 things is going to be very often good enough.
I'd like to jump in here on this actually, because I think one thing that is maybe a little deceptively easy to discount is that this is a 2-for-1, whereas a lot of the bounce spells that are commonly played are 1-for-1s. You look at these things like Winds of Rebuke, Sidisi's Faithful, like Chain of Vapor often is like it's going to be like a 1-for-1, right? Mm-hmm. But Rushing River being able to take out 2 things is actually pretty massive, because the mana cost is like relatively cheap in some of these games where you're doing nothing anyway, but it's not so high as something like Cyclonic Rift, where it might be really difficult to get to if there's like a Null Rod in play and you desperately need that removed. 3 mana it's not a tall ask.
For sure. No, that is a very good point. The way I've seen it and the way I've seen it played is like, since I play a lot of stacks and I see this card in action just bouncing stuff, it definitely opens up the floodgates, because sometimes you'll have, or not sometimes, I'd say like 90% of the time when you're playing a stack deck, you have multiple pieces of stacks down, and they have to get through. Sometimes it's a creature, sometimes it's an enchantment. Most of the time it's actually both. It'll be a rule of law, and then it'll be maybe a rule of law creature like an Archon or something. So what ends up happening is they're casting this one spell, and it's just getting rid of the 2 things that are stopping them, and then from there it's open. And the kicker is sacrifice a land, but it doesn't matter if you sack a land when you're going to win that turn, or you're going to do it on someone's end step. You're going to bounce their stuff and then untap. So this is definitely a big card for me. I think this is a really, really good card.
I think it compares very favorably to some of these things like Cyclonic Rift, because if you are seeing a lot of these like Null Rod effects, then it just becomes unfeasible. But Rushing River can do a pretty good impression in the early game, being a lot more, I guess, it's a lot more reasonable for budgeting your mana.
Yeah, another thing that's cool is like, these are, because this is underrated blue cards, these cards are pretty cheap right now. Like Dress Down is around $2, I believe, and it spiked up because of Modern, and Rushing River is literally like 25 cents. Yep. So these are cards that they're pretty budget. Let's actually head on to our next one. This is a really cool one.
And not budget.
Yeah.
Not as budget. It's still budget though. I'd say.
It's like $15.
No, they reprinted it in Forgotten Realms Commander. It's $5.
Oh, did they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's $5 now. It used to be $15. Yeah. So this is a Phantasmal Image, and so it comes in as a copy of a creature on the battlefield, except it's an illusion. But anytime it gets targeted, you have to sacrifice it. So that's the downside. But 2 mana to copy something. It's pretty good, and we'll start with Alex. What do you think your thoughts are on this?
So, Phantasmal Image is it's deceptive, because the floor can be very low on it, but oftentimes this is a 4-player format. Everybody wants to play the best cards possible, so you're going to be able to get this like sort of shared ride effect, where somebody else is going to be saying like, okay, well, I want to play like my Sarah Ascendants. They're playing these valuable creatures, and you end up just taking them because they're incentivized to play these good cards anyway, and it's just like going to be flexible in these situations. So yes, there is like the thing of like, well, I can only get mana dork with it, but I don't think that's going to happen very often. And the highs can be quite good depending on the pod you're in, right? You can get a Wandering Archaic or somebody else's Crom.
Yeah.
Yep. Even sometimes just like copying a Timna for 2 mana can be very valuable. That is usually something that's that you can pretty much rely on being able to do. Is just taking like some 3 mana value piece from your opponent. Well, not taking it, but being like, hey, I want to play with that card too. Can be very valuable, as well as what we haven't mentioned yet, just being another dockside doubler in your deck as well, or being able to copy like another person's dockside, or any creature that has an ETB, you're going to get to take that ETB as well with the Phantasmal Image.
I think the dockside, copying someone else's dockside is definitely more relevant than the dockside doubling. I think the sort of like dockside doubling thing has kind of become a meme at this point where people focus on that too much.
Yeah.
But one thing actually I should point out about Phantasmal Image, it's nice in some of these situations where it opens you up to options that you don't actually play in your main deck, right? So, I mean, something like this might be anecdotal, but I've had games playing Ecrom where you end up copying someone else's Sarah Ascendant, playing Ikra, and you just gain as many turns as you need against these stacks decks because they need to beat you down in some of these cases. They're not winning that fast. So you can do something where it's like you have the Sarah Ascendant and you have like an Ikra in play and you like keep attacking and you go up to like 125 life and you just buy yourself like 5 turns, as opposed to like, in creature combat, somebody's like, oh, I'm going to take him out of that Nas range.
I know. I've seen this. This card is definitely it's a good card. You kind of just hold it up, and just having it allows you, if someone gets too far ahead or like puts Crom on turn 1, and then you just copy it, and it's like, all right, our Crom, like we get a Crom, and it's like that's awesome. Like, so it's honestly one of those things where if someone, which usually happens, someone gets pretty far ahead in mana and ends up dropping some type of good creature down. Usually their commander, say like a Kenrith or a Crom or even maybe even a Jila, and you can just block it with that. It gets so much value because everyone's playing good cards in this format, and in CDH everyone's playing the top end of cards. So if you're playing a creature, it's usually going to be a pretty good creature to copy. So I've seen it copy Sarah Ascendants, and people have blockers up, and that honestly saves them the game because here they were getting beat down by like someone playing a Sarah Ascendant, and then they get to copy their own. The only downside, and I will say it is a downside, is whenever it's targeted, it does die. So
this is like mostly relevant when you have pods with Kenrith, though I believe I have seen before somebody Phantasmal Image somebody's Kenrith and then do something to remove their Kenrith.
Yeah, you can do some weird
stuff. Open
stuff.
Up very strange lines.
And one of those things, it's just so low costed. It's like Dress Down. It's 1 in a blue. It's not even 2 blue. It's just 1 in a blue. So it gets through pretty nice. All right, I think this next one.
The last thing I'll say is it's a card that doesn't always do exactly what you want, but it's pretty much always going to do something fairly strong. It's usually going to cheat on its mana cost and give you some valuable card.
Right. Okay. Let's. This is by far going to be our spiciest one tonight.
It's going to be the spiciest thing tonight.
I absolutely love this card, and I think it's hilarious. But we're going to go over to Perplexing Chimera. This is a 4 in a blue enchantment creature. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may exchange control of Perplexing Chimera and that spell. If you do, you may choose new targets for the spell. And John is really big on this card. I like this card as well. I think it's very cool. I think a lot of people don't look at it and don't give it just don't give it any attention because it's 5 mana and it's a 3/3 and it's like what even is that? But the value that you get with this and it makes everyone think so much harder about what their plays are. Yeah, I'll let John talk about it. Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to talk a little bit about this card. I'm going to start with talking about this card by actually talking about a different card. So one of the best cards in CDH right now is a card known as Ranger Captain of Eos. That card winds up being really good because it does this thing where it essentially, you can play it on a turn and incentivize all of your opponents and make them think like, oh shit, I can't win this turn because he can just like sacrifice that. So all of a sudden people are a lot less likely to be casting stuff, or excuse me, are a lot less likely to go for the win, and probably in just most of the time are not at all. And Perplexing Chimera winds up doing the same thing, and where you play it, and it pretty much everyone is going to realize, okay, well, if I play something here that wins the game, they're just going to take it. So you wind up having this thing where everyone kind of realizes, I don't, I don't really want to cast this thing yet, so they wait, and then when you get back to your turn, you can do what you want. And eventually, you can also kind of do the same thing where you can be trying to go for a win yourself, and you can use the Perplexing Chimera to protect your win. It is 5 mana, and it's a little bit sloppier at that job. However, this card actually winds up being a very good combo in decks that want to play crop rotation. For decks that want to play crop rotation and homeward path, you wind up having this combo where you can essentially have the homeward path, and you can exchange control of your opponent's spell for the Perplexing Chimera, and then use homeward path to take it right back. So it winds up being this card that acts like Ranger Captain of Eos in function, and then can actually turn into this kind of combo where all of a sudden it's like your opponents just really don't want to be casting anything. And as long as this card sees no play in competitive EDH, I don't think this is a card that belongs in every deck. In fact, I think it doesn't belong in most decks.
Oh.
But if you fulfill the condition of if you want to be a crop rotation deck and you're playing Homeward Path, or you think like Homeward Path might be good, this card is probably playable, and you should really consider playing this card.
I definitely see what you're saying. Yeah, it's more worthy of consideration than at first glance, right? This is like something that is thought of clearly in the casual camp, but I mean, this is no Vidalcan orrery, right? It does have an effect.
It does.
When it's doing this like impressive Ranger Captain, I mean, I'll just bring it up, but Into the North has like talked about Ranger Captain before, but I think they described the play pattern as like being really toxic, because it's almost like you have this locked box with like a bar of gold in it being guarded by somebody, and there's like 3 of you, and the guard has 1 bullet. So it doesn't make sense for any of you to go charge the guard, get shot, and then someone else gets the bar of gold. But if you keep waiting, the guard just takes the bar of gold and leaves.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the issue you run into.
Kind of
Perplexing Chimera, like, it's not as good because it doesn't exactly protect your win in the same way as Ranger Captain.
It's also 5 mana.
And, yeah, 5 mana is a big deal.
It is 1 blue, though, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, I don't think, like, this really goes in, like, a lot of decks, but it probably... Yeah, I think you've sold me on, like, it is an option to consider for, like, certain decks, especially low color.
Yeah. I think someone played this before. I'm not sure if it was a Tulane deck that played this. It might have been Trey. I forgot, but I remember playing against it once in CDH.
Maybe when you like Yarok?
Maybe it was Yarok. I think it might have been Yarok, actually.
I've seen an AC deck online play this card to very good success. Because that's, again, is a deck that wants to be playing crop rotation and wants to be playing Homeward Path, because AC is so important. And I think it can definitely be played in other decks. And even if you have to give this card away and take something, oftentimes that other player is also, if you're smart with it, you can make sure you take something and that player isn't able to like threaten wins. So you can kind of just like sit there and hope that him now having the Perplexing Chimera can stop the other people as well. So you almost get like a multiple effect out of it while you try to get to your Homeward Path to get it back.
It's almost like a politic tool. It's like Ranger.
It's a very strong politic tool that can help mid-range decks get into the later
And,
game versus
yeah, with
decks that are very proactive.
With Homeward Path,
Wait,
this is
hold
like a
on.
legit combo. This is like hilariously.
Hold on.
Legit
You could play this in Paco. You might like
Yes.
playing this in Paco.
It is
dude,
a card.
I think I
that
might put
I've-
it in Paco. Now that we're
Yeah.
talking about it, I think I might put it in Paco because this is hilarious. And the more that you stall like that, so Paco, hold on, is a deck that you honestly win with beats a lot of the time because Paco just gets so big. So with this card, putting it and you generate so much mana because you get Paco out really fast. This would be an actually consideration in that deck because you can play this to stall out the game even more and stop people from winning, and it'll incentivize other people to stop them if they get the Chimera, but the whole time you're just beating them to death with the dog.
Exactly.
So
The pressure already on the board.
yeah, the only thing is if they take the Chimera as a blocker, that's the only thing that'll be bad. But then if they block with it, they lose it. So
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you just eat it alive. It's a
Right.
3/3, and
Yeah.
Paco is like contractually obligated to be larger than that.
he comes in as a 3/3 and he's mainly a 7/7 and plus. Yeah, so that's cool. So for certain decks, we're saying this is a card that you can definitely start looking at. And again, this card is 97 cents as of this recording. So this is a card that is definitely not played at all, to be honest. And I think
Yeah.
should see some more play in certain decks. The last card we're gonna get to is actually a very, very good card called Muddle the Mixture, and it is a transmute card, and that's what makes it good. But it also has the effect of countering target instant or sorcery, and I think that's pretty good.
Double
What do you?
blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you have to say
So-
about this, Alex?
So if I can start on this a little bit,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll say the actual text of the effect of casting Muddle the Mixture is rarely useful. This is mostly going to be used as a tutor target for 2 mana, for 2 mana cards. However, it seems limited, but lots of the pivotal cards being played right now are 2 mana. Think about it. There's Breach, Thassa's Oracle, Dockside. There's more fringe cards such as like Grinding Station. So it ends up being this card that actually enables you to pull off a lot of these 2-card combos. Let's say you have Underworld Breach in hand. You can use that to get Grinding Station. If you have Oracle in hand, get Tainted Pact. You need mana, get Dockside. So these decks are playing a lot of these strong 2-mana cards anyway. Oh, here's a good one. You need to answer a clogged board state, Dress Down. And the nice thing about this also is when you're transmuting, that's not casting. It's discard, so it's a triggered effect. That's not affecting Rule of Law at all. So you can actually dump this with the transmute, get a card like Abrupt Decay maybe, play that, and then blow up the Rule of Law. Something like that.
Yeah, that's
or
a big one. Yeah, for sure.
any number of things, right? This card is just flexible.
It is very flexible, and the 2 blue counter target instant or sorcery. There's so many
It
instants or
just-
sorceries.
Yeah, it
So
adds the flexibility even more so. So all of a sudden, this spell that can grab your win cons is now a spell that can protect your win cons when you're trying to go off if you already have them. The card is almost always able to do something. The only problem with it is both sides are just a little bit overcosted.
I would
But
agree with that.
versatility you
Yeah.
get with it of being able to it really winds up being able to you just take the half that you need to make your hand work. So if your hand is going one direction, or like maybe you have everything but you don't have any like protection spells, boom, Muddle the Mixture can do it. Maybe you have the inverse where you have like a bunch of protection spells, a bunch of counter spells and stuff, but you just haven't found any gas. You can use Muddle the Mixture very oftenly to find gas. The worst case for Muddle the Mixture is is transmute for a demonic tutor. So if you really need something weird, you could do that. That's not good, but it is something that you can usually do.
most
And I'll say this card isn't like gangbusters, but I think it's definitely more of a consideration when you're in like these 3 or 2 or monocolor decks, right? I don't think it makes the cut as much when you're going up to 4 and 5 color because you're just struggling to find those slots. But I'll say you can play this like very comfortably in 3 color decks and not be worried at all about the multiple blue and the cost.
For sure. Yeah, it's a good card when it's legal in Pauper as well.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I had no
point,
idea.
actually.
This is hilarious. That it was legal in Pauper. That's so funny. Anyways, this card is to go on the budget side, but this is probably one of the more expensive ones at
You can tutor for
$5.
Chatterstorm.
You totally could. But in terms of it's everything that wins right now in CDH is 2 mana. Like almost everything that wins is 2
It's
mana.
a very high percentage.
All the good cards that you want to be playing and you want to be dropping, or your combo pieces that you need, are usually around 2 mana, or one of the pieces that is at 2 mana. So this gets you through that, and being transmute, you can't counter that. You have to stifle it. You have to do some weird thing to stop the trigger. And I don't know anyone that is on those stifle effects or those triggering effects. People aren't playing vintage where they're stifling your fetch line, so they don't have 4-0s, so it's not the best effect that people want to play. They'd rather just put in like Dispel or something like that.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you can just say you have the combo in hand already. You can just use it to counter something if you have the blue mana. The double blue is hard though, I will say. The double blue is a little hard, but it's sometimes, hey, if it's late game and you need a protection, this gets you there.
Yeah.
So for what it does, I'd say this is pretty damn good.
Hot take. This card's better than Mana Drain. I'd be
yeah.
more willing to play it than Mana Drain.
Yeah, in the Nas decks that you're playing, yeah, I could see that. I mean, in general, if you're not playing a mid-range deck, and even then, sometimes you can consider it. You don't really need the mana for Mana Drain most of the time. So, with the colorless mana is hard to work with sometimes, especially in the decks that don't really. I don't know. I guess you can Mana Drain and then turbo out Rom. It depends on your meta.
I like it in the different like Tavesh decks. It can really help because you have 4 colorless in your command zone. You're like, all right, I can drop this. Or decks that have, a big fat colorless commander.
Yeah. For sure. All right, we'll do a little recap on the cards. We got Dress Down. This is the Stacks Breaker that we all love.
Yep,
Another Russian River. That is
yeah.
That's another Stacks Breaker card. And then we got Phantasmal Image, which is a very good just value piece. Perplexing Chimera, which is one of our hot takes, definitely hot take for the day. This is the spicy card that we like to use. Or not that we like to use, that we've been considering. I think I'm gonna put this in Paco after talking about it. And then Muddle the Mixture, which is just a card that literally does almost everything you want.
So I'll just say at the end to recap that, not all of these cards are going to be the best at what they do. They're not going to be like the absolute like pinnacle of like, I need to tutor, therefore I put in Muddle the Mixture. That's just not going to be the case.
You're right.
But these cards are sufficiently flexible and there's a lot of value in it. So maybe keep these in the back of your mind as like something to just put in the toolbox and bring out when the times require it.
Yeah, when you're filling out the last, the 99th and 100th card of your deck, and you're thinking to yourself, I've already put in all the good cards, these might be some cards you want to look at and see, hey, does this work for my deck? Or
For sure.
maybe it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Because we all just think, again, that these cards are a little bit underplayed.
For sure. I think we'll end it on that one. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Take
See
care,
ya.
everybody.
Flip it. Call it.
We're pretty serious.
Well, this is their livelihood. If they don't win, they don't eat.
See the guy watching?